Another page flip on the calendar and a page closer to the resumption of Iowa men's basketball in the new Ben McCollum era. We're going to talk about one of Iowa's 2025 recruits. That's Tate Sage, who was a flip from Drake. He had signed his national letter of intent with Drake, the Bulldogs, and was able to get a release from that letter and joins the Hawkeyes. We'll talk about what Tate Sage brings to Iowa in just a moment. But first, I want to thank our sponsor, Iowa Floor Covering down in Bondurant. They sponsor a bunch of our coverage during the offseason. We want to thank IFC for that. If you have a DIY project on your hands, perhaps a flooring project or a bathroom remodel, which could involve a tile shower, they can help you out down at Iowa Floor Covering. Give them a call, 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. You can also visit them online, iowafloorcovering.com. Use that /DIY to learn about their do-it-yourself flooring and their special offer on their Tough Core Click Together flooring. That's iowafloorcovering.com/DIY. So former Drake signee Tate Sage commits, flips, gets a national letter of intent release from Drake, and he's on campus, already seen in some Iowa photos. The first couple of days of practice. Tate Sage, a Weatherford, Oklahoma native. He's actually the identical twin of Ethan Sage, who at one time was also a Drake recruit, never a commit, but was a recruit, was not touted as highly as his identical twin brother, Tate. We'll get back to Ethan in just a few minutes. But back to the new Hawkeye in the family, that's Tate Sage. Tate listed at 6'7", 200 pounds. As I mentioned, he and the family from Weatherford, Oklahoma. He was originally signed with Drake. He called his Drake commitment the result of the style of play that Ben McCollum employed at Drake, and certainly will show up at Iowa as well. And he compared it to some European basketball. And not a surprise when you look at some of the guys that Iowa has been able to nab via the transfer portal, like an Alvaro Forgetas, that European flavor, both literally and in style of play. And I think you see that even with some of these 25 kids. Now, as I mentioned the other day when we talked about Joey Matteoni, some of these kids Ben McCollum's having to bring in here at the tail end of the recruiting process for this class are not highly touted kids. So these kids didn't have hardly any high major offers or none, and hardly any mid-major offers. Now, Tate Sage had a couple of D1 offers besides Drake. He was also offered by Tulsa and Missouri State, had an offer from Lindenwood. As I mentioned, his brother was recruited by Drake. His best offer was Pitt State, which is a power at the D2 level in athletics. So that's where he ended up going. It'll be interesting to follow Ethan's career. If he's good enough, he ends up being better than the recruiting process would indicate. Maybe he moves up. I mean, Ben McCollum's certainly not going to be afraid to take somebody from the D2 ranks. Having been a head coach at a D2 power at a place at Northwest Missouri State, not all that far from Pitt State. Now, Tate, as I mentioned, very long. He's got a good jump shot, can shoot off the dribble, can shoot off the catch, has good vision, is an excellent passer. You're going to see Iowa really utilize the pick and roll moving forward with Ben McCollum. Certainly with Bennett Sturts, you're going to see a lot of pick and roll action. And, you're always taught at a young age, the best place to pass out of is the post. And so I think some of these guys like Tate Sage, Joey Matteoni, you're going to see them put on some weight. It sounds like Matteoni's already put on some weight. Sage is going to have to gain some weight. I would not be shocked to see Sage redshirt as a freshman, depending on if Iowa has enough depth to do that. I don't know. But my guess is you're going to see a lot of these guys that have this big man passing ability. You're going to see Ben McCollum really deploy that and utilize that. That's part of having that European style of play where you run a lot of unique action. You're passing out of the post. You got big guys kind of bringing the ball up the court at times. I'm not saying I was going to do that a ton year one with Bennett Sturts being the point guard of the present, but it will be interesting to see how this whole thing evolves. Watching Tate shoot, he likes the corners, as a lot of shooters do. He's got underwhelming quickness. I mean, he's 6'7". He's not the best of athletes either. I feel like I'm a broken record. I feel like I'm just saying the same thing as I said for Joey Matteoni. I think Matteoni actually plays a little longer. He is listed an inch taller than Tate Sage is. And keep in mind, Joey Matteoni's a year older. So he redshirted last year at Drake. So these guys aren't the carbon copy of one another. There are some similarities in size, but I do think Matteoni plays a little bit bigger as well. Here are some stats from Tate Sage's high school career. As a sophomore, averaged 10, 5, and 3. As a junior, averaged 11, 4.5 and 4, nearly as many assists as rebounds. The indicators that he is an above average passer, but he's going to have to add some weight in order to be a better rebounder. Those are my 2 cents, at least based on what I saw on tape and looking at some of these stats, even from the high school ranks. As a senior, averaged 13.1 points per game. Here's Iowa's bio on Tate Sage. Like I said, he's officially with Iowa. In fact, he's already been participating in some of the early practice sessions that have been posted, at least highlights and some quick reels of Iowa men's basketball practices here first couple days. But here's the official bio from the University of Iowa. Tate Sage earned Oklahoma Coaches Association Large West All-State and the Oklahomans Class 4A All-State team honors after averaging 13.1 per game last year. Helped Weatherford to a 110-12 record the past 4 seasons, included winning the 2025 4A state title as a senior. Weatherford made 4 state tournament appearances where it advanced to 4 state semis, 3 state finals, had 2 state runner-up finishes. As I mentioned, the stats throughout his sophomore and junior years. As I mentioned, he's a twin brother, Ethan, who is committed to play for Pitt State. And I'm sure that was a bit of a challenge breaking those two guys up. It seems like twins have that natural bond. They are identical twins. So like I said, if Ethan ends up being an above average player, Ben McCollum's going to keep his eye on Ethan Sage at Pitt State. Now, is Tate Sage going to end up being a good ad for Iowa? We just don't know. I mean, obviously he liked him at Drake, but as I continue to sound like a broken record, just like with Joey Matteoni, this kid had no other big-time offers. I mean, Tulsa, Missouri State, Drake, that was it. Joey Matteoni, very similar. The guys that he's brought over that were originally committed to Northwest Missouri State, some of those guys ended up being really good players at Drake, so they were able to go up that level. But can they go up another big level? I remember asking AC Earl and Gary Close to kind of compare the jump you have from D2 to mid-major D1 compared to the jump from mid-major D1 to high-major D1. And they say the jump from mid-major D1 to high-major D1 is larger. So it's going to be more of a challenge if you're trusting the opinions of a former Big Ten grade and a former Big Ten coaching grade. It's going to be harder for McCollum and everybody to make that jump, whether we're talking about guys who had a reputation at Drake or guys that were recruited like Tate Sage, Joey Matteoni, who have never seen the floor in a college uniform. And all of a sudden, they have opportunities to play for a Big Ten school. No surprise, Tate Sage didn't even take a visit to Iowa, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a coach he's got tons of faith in. I don't blame him one bit. And wouldn't it be a story if Ben McCollum ends up getting some of these guys like Matteoni and Sage to be really good Big Ten players? I wouldn't be shocked. But man, if he's able to do that in a couple of years, wow. Great coaching, though. You just never know. I'm just going to be fascinated to see how some of these long, versatile players, taller guys that can shoot, that were under-recruited, how that ends up fitting into Big Ten basketball. And just that transition and that step up is going to be interesting to follow. So congratulations to Tate Sage. Had not talked about him when he initially announced that he had been released from his letter at Drake and had signed or committed and eventually signed with Iowa. And at the time of our recording with Ben McCollum, he had not signed. So we weren't able to talk to Coach McCollum about Tate Sage at that point. So just for the record, I know he was committed at that point, but he was not officially signed. So we'll continue to follow the roster. I mean, again, they're back practicing right now this summer. And we'll see if Iowa adds anybody else, right? They had a decommit here recently we haven't talked about from an FIU transfer. And if someone else pops up, McCollum is willing to take him. Kezigifa is not coming to Iowa. I know some people wondered about that. He was a High Point transfer who had visited Iowa recently, committed to USC, and then decommitted. And I know Hawkeye fans were like, hey, Iowa's going to grab him. He signed with Ole Miss. So you can imagine the behind-the-scenes things that were probably happening on that note. So anyways, congratulations to Tate Sage. We'll continue to follow roster development with Iowa men's basketball. Thank you for being here. Hit that thumbs up button, folks. We got a really good show coming up for you here tomorrow. And then also next week, killer interview. Stay tuned if you love hoops. I'm not going to tell you which team, but hoops, Hawkeye hoops. Keep it locked right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm.